What's going on, everybody? Ronnie DiMaggio here, product specialist at BMW of Morristown. And in today's video, we are doing a walk around and overview with this 2024 BMW X5 xDrive40i. So the X5 just received its LCI. In BMW terms, that is Life Cycle Impulse, aka mid-cycle refresh. So this generation, the G05 X5, has been out since 2018, and just now for the 24 model year, BMW has refreshed it with an LCI. So in this video, we're going to talk about all of those changes that come for the 2024 model year of X5. We'll talk about styling, both exterior and interior. We'll talk about powertrains and give you a thorough look at the 2024 X5. So let's get started with what's under the hood. Under the hood of 2024 X5s, there are quite a few changes to talk about, so let's get into it now. Like was true with previous G05 generation X5s, 2018 through 2023 model year X5s, there are 4 different flavors of X5 for you to choose from. You have the 40i variants, which can be had in all or rear-wheel drive. You have the V8 variants, those are the X5 M60, which replaces the X5 M50, and you have the X5M, of course. Now we also have a plug-in hybrid, which is called the X550e now, and that replaces the 45e. So you have 40i, M60i, 50e, and X5M. That is your X5 lineup for 2024. Now, there are changes across the board. All of those variants got changes to their powertrains. Let's talk about the 40i's, because that's what we have here. So horsepower was bumped for 40i's from 335 to 375, which is awesome. The 40i's still use the B58 in mild hybrid form, so 48-volt mild hybrid. That was true of previous X5s. We just got a little horsepower jump for 2024, which is great. The 50e, the plug-in hybrid, which replaces the 45e, got a bigger number in its name, and for good reason. The horsepower jump is incredible for that car. We gained about 100 horsepower there, so the 45e had around 380. The 50e has around 480. 480 horsepower is a serious number. I'm sure there's a time in history where the X5M only had about that much horsepower. Maybe the early E60s were, or E-chassis X5Ms were in the neighborhood of 500, but big horsepower for a plug-in hybrid, which is really, really cool. Extended electric driving range as well, so 40 miles all electric with the 50e now, as opposed to around 30 with the 45e. Great to see a nice change there, and that of course gets the updated B58 that this gets with updated plug-in hybrid technology, so that's where all that horsepower bump comes from. The M60 also is revised, so horsepower figures and torque and all that stays the same for the M60. However, it's a totally new engine, S68 replacing the N63 in the M60i, hence the name change, 60 now from 50. So same horsepower and torque ratings, new engine, and the X5M now also gets that same engine, the S68, which replaces the S63, but again, horsepower stays the same, 600 for non-competition models, 617 for competition models. With the M60, it's 523 horsepower, regardless of, there are no engine horsepower output changing options for the M60. So those are the powertrains. All engines are paired to 8-speed automatic transmission, as has been true of all previous X5s of this generation. So overall, lots of substantial changes under the hood of the X5, which is really exciting to see. The 6-cylinder variants got bumps in horsepower. The V8s got totally swapped out to the new generation, the S68, and a huge bump for the plug-in hybrid. That plug-in hybrid is probably the most surprising and impressive to me. That is a huge bump, almost 500 horsepower, 40 miles of all-electric driving range. Really impressive numbers out of the 50e. So those are the engines. Let's close up the hood and talk about styling, starting with the front. All right, so styling with the 2024 X5, lots and lots of styling changes to talk about, but we'll start up front where the majority of the exterior styling changes are. Now, we'll talk about the headlights first, because that is the first thing that jumped out to me when I saw the X5. Those headlights are definitely different, definitely new. So BMW has changed both the shape as well as the internal design of the headlights. The exterior shape, that perimeter line around the edge of the headlight, is designed to be a little bit smoother, a little bit sleeker looking, less cuts, less lines, less busyness in the design. Definitely narrower and slimmer as well. They're 35 millimeters narrower than the outgoing headlights, so just a more minimalist design. That tends to be the direction that BMW is going with headlights now. We saw that with the X1, the 3 Series, now the X5. I'm sure we're going to see it with the 5 Series reveal that's coming up sometime in the coming months. So going for a more minimalist design in the headlights. However, thankfully, they're maintaining the tradition of quad headlights with the daytime running lights. So unfortunately, the laser lights, which had that really signature BMW looking Corona ring-esque looking hexagonal daytime running light, those are no longer available. However, the standard LEDs, which are now the only headlight option, got a significant upgrade. So pre-LCI, the LEDs, the standard headlights just had those two underlines as daytime running lights. Now we have these really cool looking arrow-shaped, outward pointing daytime running lights. They're LEDs, they're not lasers anymore. However, they look really, really cool, and it's a big, big upgrade for the standard LEDs. So those are the headlights. I think those look great, especially that upgrade from the standard LEDs to these arrow-shaped DRLs. Still a quad headlight, looks really cool. The grille, to my eye, looks pretty much unchanged. I'm sure they tweaked the dimensions and stuff, maybe millimeters here and there, but if you go to look at one in a showroom, you're not going to notice a big difference in the grille. Looks pretty similar, and that is to say it looks good. I think it's a good-looking grille on the X5. The front bumper has also been redesigned, so the whole front fascia really got a pretty big facelift. We see these nice and new looking sort of L-shaped cuts on either side of the bumper, those air ducts, which look really nice. Again, that's more of the design language. We saw that earliest, I believe, with the facelift X3. M Sport has that. We see it on 3 Series now. We see it on X5. Again, I'm sure we're going to see it on future models. So we're really starting to get a good feel for what the future of BMW models are going to look like with the recent reveals, X5, 3 Series, so on and so forth. So those L-shaped designs look really nice, tie in really nicely with BMW tradition with those L-shaped taillights. We're seeing it on the front now. We can also see on the front end that we have a little bit more painted, black painted surfaces. So this whole lower portion here, this car is carbon black, so it's a little tough to tell, but from this line, I'll just trace with my fingers, you can see from there down is painted black with the exception of this lower piece, which is body color. So we have added in those painted black elements. Again, we're seeing that on a lot of models. I'm going to repeat myself, but we're starting to see some trends forming, which is pretty cool. But we're seeing that black painted, which looks awesome on darker colored cars because it just adds a little contrast. Carbon black's a bluish black, so you have the true black, which is a nice contrast. And then on white cars, you get kind of that Stormtrooper look, like that white on black with black wheels looks really cool. So I think that painted black portion in the lower section looks nice as well. And overall, you can see that the bumper has just kind of been chiseled, sharpened a little bit, just changed generally, small tweaks to make a big impact as far as front end design. I believe these ducts got a little bit bigger, a little bit more of a cut right here and an angle. So overall, nice looking front end. I think they did just enough on the 24 X5 to make it look new and fresh and modern. Not too much to make it unrecognizable and to keep it definitely X5, definitely BMW. So that's the front end. Let's move along to the side. All right, so along the side of the 2024 X5, not a ton going on here, not a ton of big changes like there are in the front on the side. However, couple things that I do want to point out to you guys. First thing is actually going to have to do with the side of the headlight. You can see that there's a significant blue element there in the side of the headlight, even though, like I just explained, this is not a laser light. Now, traditionally, we would have associated a blue accent in the headlight with a laser light. However, this is the first time I've seen a blue accent in the headlight that isn't a laser light. This is an LED headlight, and it still gets those laser light typical blue accents. So maybe that's something BMW plans to do in the future, give those blue accents to LED headlights. I haven't seen that on any other models. The X5, 24 X5 is the first I've seen it, but I think it looks really cool. I personally am a big fan of that. I love the way those blue accents look, especially if you pair it to a color like carbon black, which is what we have here, tanzanite blue, those darker blues. That light blue ties in really nicely. If you pair it to blue calipers, you have an awesome blue color scheme going on the outside. So cool to see that. As we move along the side of the car, these are 20-inch wheels, 275, 40, 20, all-around square setup. This is a carryover wheel. This was on 23s. It has been carried over to 2024s. You can option all the way up to a 22 if you would like, or you can stick with the standard 20s. Lots of good wheel options for the X5. Right behind that wheel, you can see that we have an air breather vent. Now, this is one of the more significant changes on the side of the car for 2024. So before, for 23 pre-LCI G05 X5s, this air breather was kind of just this portion right here. If I cover my hand there, you'll see what that looked like. It was just a line. There were no strakes or fins behind it. Now BMW has decided to make that breather a little bit more aggressive and style it a little bit more. So we have those strakes kind of running behind the vent to give it a sensation of like motion while stationary. I'm not a car designer, but I know car designers like to make cars look like they're moving when they're not, and that definitely contributes to that effect. It looks cool, subtle, but nice sporty little touch there. As we move past that, we continue down the side of the X5. Really not a lot to talk about. This is all pretty standard. Nothing has changed with the X5 from that vent back on the side. Now we do have revised taillights, which we'll talk about in the back. You can see those a bit from the side, but otherwise the side is largely unchanged. Same wheel in the back, 20, like I said, square setup, your black roof rails with this M Sport equipped car. So that's the side of the X5. Let's move around to the back. Around back with the 2024 X5, we have one major headline change to talk about, and if you're an avid BMW enthusiast, maybe a current G05 pre-LCI X5 owner, you'll know that is the taillights. These are a pretty significant departure from pre-LCI taillights. They look a lot different, definitely been refreshed, so let's go over that. Like the headlights, the outside shape, the perimeter of the taillights has been minimalized. They're a little bit sleeker, a little bit more streamlined in their design, more modern, all that stuff, just like the headlights. Now, unlike the headlights, and sort of in contrast to that, the actual face design and the lighting elements have become a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more bold, a little bit more stylized. What I mean by that is the face here has a ledge that juts out of it, and I can actually grab onto it. It's that substantial, so they look very 3D, which is really cool. And the actual design of the taillight, excuse me, in the lighting element has what BMW and all the marketing materials calls the X motif. So on the outer edge of the taillight here, you can see it's shaped like an X. Obviously, that is designed to, emulate the badge, the model name X5, our all-wheel drive system, xDrive. So cool to see that little tie in there. That is model specific as well. X for X5 is something that we won't see on any other model, and I'm a big fan of that model specific stuff. So cool to see that. Other than the taillights, not a ton going on here. We have pretty traditional G05 X5 stuff. Badging remains the same. The rear spoiler, glass, and bumper all remain the same from 2023. That means really good looking car. The X5 has always been a really good looking SAV, especially in the back. We have these really nice looking chrome exhaust tips, which you can make black if you get Shadowline or M Sport Pro. We have this gray painted piece down here in the lower part of the bumper, as well as our trailer hitch, if so equipped. That is the back of the X5. Let's go ahead and hop in the trunk as well as the back seat to analyze some of the practicality elements with the 2024 X5. All right, let's talk about practicality with the 2024 X5. Obviously, the X5 is a family vehicle. For the vast majority of customers that purchase one, it is an everyday car, it's a family car, and you need to use the trunk and the back seat. So let's talk about the trunk and the back seat. So the trunk is obviously power operated on all X5s. That is standard. Both the upper tailgate and the lower tailgate, both fully power operated. And you can open those separately, you can open them together. It all depends on how you configure the settings inside the car. But once you have the trunk open, you can see really, really big cargo space, lots of room to store groceries, luggage, suitcase, anything that you might need to store in the back of the X5. You will definitely have room for it. Now, the X5 does not have a third row. If you need a third row in BMW world, you're gonna have to go up to the X7. But for those folks that don't need a third row, the X5 has plenty of trunk space as well as plenty of back seat space, as we'll see in a second. As far as additional space in the trunk, if we lift this up, you have more trunk space, quite a lot of it actually. Tons of underfloor storage in the X5. That's true of 23 and prior X5s as well, but that is carried on for the 24 X5s. Lots of trunk space with the trunk floor closed, and even more trunk space when you open up that trunk floor. And of course, press one button and both the lower tailgate and the upper tailgate will come closed and the car will lock itself. So that's the trunk. Let's check out the back seat. All right, so in the back seat of the 24 X5, me sitting behind myself, this is where I would sit as a driver. I have plenty of knee room, headroom, foot room, hip room, shoulder room, all the room. I have plenty of it. Lots of space in the back of the X5 here, which is great. Again, Interior dimensions, exterior dimensions, those remain unchanged, 23 to 24, so it's not more space than it used to be, but it's still great space back here. As far as changes for 2024, there's one really minor one that I noticed. I don't know if this is something that has been marketed at all, probably not because it's so minor, but the bezel for this rear seat attachment piece where you can plug in a USB-C charger or push in an attachment for like an iPad holder or a coat hook has now been surrounded in satin silver, whereas it used to just be black plastic. So very minor change, but it does make the back seat feel a little bit more upscale with a nice high quality material there. Other than that, everything is unchanged back here. However, one thing I've noticed, and this could just be in my head, don't take this as gospel, this is my personal opinion relating to you, I feel like the seat bench is a little bit softer, a little bit more comfortable maybe. I feel like I'm sinking into it more. I've sat in the back seat of a lot of 2023 and prior X5s. I feel like the back seat might have gotten a little bit more comfortable. Maybe they changed the design of the seat. Maybe it's a little bit plusher, more overstuffed. Maybe a little bit comfier in the back seat, or maybe that's just totally in my head and I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you have a 23, sit in the back and then sit in the back of a 24 and see if you notice a difference. Just my observation. Otherwise, great space to be back here. You do have climate vents, you have USB-C chargers down here, as well as a 12-volt power outlet, rear seat storage there, as well as some really nice sizable door cards for bottle holders and whatnot. But that's the back seat of the X5. Let's go ahead and hop up front and talk about the changes up there. All right, so here we are inside the front seat of the 2024 BMW X5. First thing, big headline change everybody's going to notice inside of the 24 X5, especially if you're coming out of a 2023, is this iDrive 8 infotainment system. So big curved display. We have a 14.9 inch center display as well as a 12.9 inch instrument cluster. So iDrive 8 has been proliferating across the BMW model lineup. It's in 3 series, X7, i4, iX, X5 now. It will be in X3. It will be in everything eventually. But really cool to see iDrive 8 implemented here. It works great. It's super responsive to my touch. You can see it's a touchscreen, or I can use the iDrive controller here to scroll around, go through my menu, go through my music, my phone, navigation, all that stuff. You have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You have BMW's intelligent personal assistant, so you can make phone calls, send texts, change radio stations, adjust climate control, all that stuff with Siri or BMW's own intelligent personal assistant. So that's iDrive 8. It works fantastic. It looks great. It's easy to use. Overall, just a great system. It also extends to the gauge cluster here, so I can adjust the display of the gauge cluster. I can change what is shown in the center here. I can also adjust the layout of the gauge cluster, as well as what is shown in the head-up display as well. So lots of configurability with the gauge cluster, while also always still displaying that pertinent information: engine temperature, fuel level, speed, and either power meter or RPM, or neither. If you'd like, you can eliminate the engine display completely and just have a speedometer if you like that minimal look. Surrounding the iDrive 8 display and the dashboard is, of course, a revised dashboard to accommodate that big curved display. So one thing I've noted about the X5 and pretty much all BMW models with iDrive 8, except for the iX, is that BMW is definitely recessing it more and more into the dashboard with every model that comes out that I've seen. There's still no overhang here, but it's set back against the dashboard. It comes, the dashboard kind of wraps around it on the left side here. So that's in contrast to the iX, where it's very much on posts. It looks like the screen is coming out at you. It's way, way off the dashboard. Not the case here with the X5. So little thing to note as far as the integration of iDrive 8, looks like they're being a little bit more traditional with it as they push it further and further back into the dashboard. Who knows, maybe with 5 Series, whatever comes out next, we'll see like a hood across the top. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that direction with it. That is, you know, one part of the dashboard, but we've also got this new piece down here in the sort of middle section of the dashboard, which houses your air vents as well as your climate control, air direction controllers. These also control whether or not you want the vent to be open or closed. So you twist that to the left, the vent's closed. Twist it to the right, and the vent is open. Obviously, in this area, your climate controls used to exist. Now the climate controls are all integrated into the screen. So if I click climate menu here, there are my climate controls. We have the heated seat, the fan speed, the air direction, and then the same for the passenger. Turn on automatic, AC, sync, max AC, those kind of things. You do still have hard buttons for your windshield defroster, as well as your rear window defroster, skip track, hazards, and your volume and power knob for the screen there. So that's the dashboard. More changes in the area of the dashboard, but not necessarily the dashboard itself. Headlight controls are a little bit different. So in previous X5s, G05 X5s, you had a cluster of buttons here with auto, different buttons for parking lights, low beams, things like that. Now we have 3 buttons. We have the lighting menu button, the low beam / auto button, and then a button for off. So press that low beam menu button and you'll see it brings up the exterior lighting menu here in the center gauge cluster, center information display, excuse me. So BMW has been doing that sort of 3-lined button trend on a lot of cars. We see it on 7 Series, iX, X1 to a large extent, and now a little bit. That's the only 3-line button here in the X5, but cool to see that tech and that sort of interior design philosophy spreading across the BMW lineup. Window switches, door locks, mirrors, seat memory, trunk opener, all of that remains the same. A little bit of change down here in the center console area. We can see that the shifter is no longer an upright shifter. Instead, it is the shifter switch, shift lever, rocker switch, however you'd like to call it. That has replaced the upright shifter in all but the M cars now with modern BMWs. Looks like everything that isn't a manual transmission or an M car is going to have this little rocker switch. I'm impartial to that. I like the upright switch, the upright shifter. I also like this. I'll take either one. I think this works really nicely in parking lots. If you're making a 3-point turn, this is, it's just a finger movement as opposed to, shifting your whole arm. This is a little bit easier to use, believe it or not. But I totally get the appeal of having a more traditional shifter. Can definitely sympathize with wanting that, as well as a nice place to rest your hand. But we work around that, get used to it, and I do like the way this feels, especially in sort of low-speed maneuverability situations. iDrive controller remains the same, with the exception of the apps button being eliminated due to iDrive 8. The apps screen has sort of been mingled together with the car screen for iDrive 8, so you can see that that's a small change. The parking brake, hill descent control, auto hold, sport, drive modes, parking sensors, traction control, all of that stuff is the exact same on the inside of the 2023 X5. Small change regarding the leather. This actually happened for 2023, but it's obviously continued for 2024. SensaFin replaces Sensatech. Not that that matters in this car, because this one has the Tartufo Merino Leather, which is really cool. SensaFin is the new synthetic leather that BMW is using. No more Sensatech. And SensaFin feels great. Obviously, this isn't it right here, but I've seen and felt Sensatech plenty of times in other X5s, X7s. Feels really nice, really good synthetic leather from BMW. But that is the interior of the X5, at least up front. Overall, really, really great place to be. Definitely been modernized, definitely been minimalized, but it still maintains that sort of rugged feeling, which the X5 has always had. Definitely not as rugged as, a Jeep or something like that, but it has maybe substantial or sort of muscular feeling is the right word. We have a wide center console here. We have a really wide dashboard with a great view of the road. You definitely feel like you sit high up. So the X5 feels great on the inside, looks great on the inside, extrememely comfortable. It makes for an absolutely fantastic daily driver, which we know the vast majority of folks will be using it as. So that is the interior of the 24 X5, excuse me. Let's hop outside and we'll wrap up. All right, so that is going to do it for our walk around and overview with the all-new 2024 BMW X5 xDrive40i. We will do the 50e, the M60, and the X5M when those come in, but for now, the X5 xDrive40i is the only one we've gotten with the 24 X5 so far. So stay tuned for those future X5 videos, but that'll do it for this one. Really hope you guys enjoyed checking out the 2024 X5 with us. Hopefully we were able to bring the car to you through video if you haven't been able to check one out in person yet. If you have any questions about the 2024 X5, please drop those in a comment below. We're super responsive to all the comments on YouTube as well as Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are super active on all our socials at BMW of Morristown. If you'd like to give us a follow, we would appreciate it. We would also appreciate if you liked this video and subscribe to the channel if you think we deserved it. We have lots of content planned with all the latest and greatest from BMW, so stay tuned for that. If you have questions, like I said, about the X5, let us know below. If you have suggestions for future videos, things you want to see on the channel, please let us know. We take all that stuff into consideration. Like I said, we read everything. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for participating in the channel and watching along with us. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next one.